With the exception of Jimmy Vasser. Zanardi got the change of rubber all the way around. We could see the problem with the left front. Brian Herta was in. It was 14-9 and out for Zanardi. Jimmy Vasser is now in, getting his service that should carry him the rest of the distance. We're watching Vasser from our vantage point. Revs way up and he's rolling. It looks like a almost stop. He's on the rev limiter all the way down pit road. I mean, big time on the rev limiter.
Well, that's the speed control, Gary. He holds that button down, but if he keeps his throttle on it, it just goes into that speed control device.
By the way, while we're talking about that and watching Jimmy Vasser last week, remember he had a speed violation during the pits that before the weekend started, he said might have cost him the championship. Danny, you researched what they did.
Right, they had a button that they pushed that they hold down for 1 second. It puts a yellow light on it. It says the speed control device is in play. But what happened is they had so many buttons in there, they were trying to shorten that a little bit. So they also put where he put his 100% fuel mixture in there and the light as well. So he thought his speed control device was on, and it actually was not. And when he realized that he was going over the speed limit, it was too late. They had already nabbed him.
Changed it at the last minute. Not good for a driver who's accustomed to other things. There is the nose from Stefan Johansson's car. That tells you something about energy-absorbing materials and how they protect the driver and the great job that the engineers do on these machines to keep the drivers safe.
And also what a great job that tire wall did in front of that concrete, because you wouldn't want to hit that as hard. But I tell you, the safety on these cars now is fantastic. And look there's Brian Herta, and right behind him is Al Unser Jr.
Yeah, we were tracking Al, though. He was due in just before the yellow came out, Jan.
Yes, Paul. In fact, what happened was he came in under green. They serviced the car, and then they went to full course yellow. So he's been caught by the pace car. He's shown, at least at the moment, on the scoring monitor as 1 lap down. His stop was 14.7 seconds. They put 4 tires on. They made no changes. Their only complaints were, as we talked about before, the tires getting too hot and the track getting greasy. Now to update Michael Andretti. His last radio communication was that the car is undrivable. So when we saw them try to fix the front suspension, at the moment, that is not helping him. And as Danny alluded to, that thing is just not straight enough for him to go to the front.
Yeah, but Jan, we're going to have a lengthy yellow. They're actually going to bring out one of the jet machines and help get some of the dust off the track. Do you think that's something they'd give a try to?
Well, the interesting thing is they did not even act like they were going to bring Michael in. I guess they feel as though they've done everything they can do short of changing the actual steering arm itself. Maybe they feel they can't change it in less than a lap. We'll check in further, but so far the crew has made no indication they're going to bring him in under this yellow.
That little Al's down in 11th place, though, on the course right now. As we watch Stefan Johansson walk away, he was right behind Brian Herta, who is the leader on the track.
You're watching a great scrap here for 5th place between Mauricio Gugelmin and Greg Moore. Alex Zanardi running in 2nd place right behind Brian Herta, and he would be 2nd in the championship if he was able to win this race. The current position of Michael Andretti means he's not going to score any points today. If Alex can win, he'll be 2nd in the championship.
Mauricio Gugelmin being challenged by Greg Moore. Gugelmin is 5th. Gore has been right down behind him most of the way. Brian Herta is still the leader. Nothing has changed at the front. Jimmy Vasser is still exactly where he wants to be, as Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. fall further and further back and away from a chance at a championship. There's the way the points would end up. Andretti in 2nd. We mentioned that before. He eclipsed Zanardi, but he still is in a very precarious position. And of course, Al Unser Jr. sitting there with 127 against Zanardi as well.
We're on board with Jimmy Vasser. He's right behind his teammate. Closing on him, Greg Moore looks like he's pulling away a little bit from those two. Jimmy Vasser pulled out some on Scott Pruitt. You know what's interesting? We were showing Greg Moore there just a moment ago, who's back up into 6th spot right behind Big Mo. Remember, he tried to pass Big Mo a while ago and spun off, and he's come all the way back up and caught him again.
Evenly spaced up the hill, Herta, Zanardi, Vasser, and Pruitt, Jan Beekes.
Mauricio Gugelmin, the reason that dropping back into the clutches of Moore is because the tires are going off. A very similar situation to what we heard from some of the other Goodyear runners like Allenser Jr. But that doesn't explain necessarily how well Brian Herta is running with the same kind of rubber.
Well, Jan, as you know, tires going off, that usually has a little to do with the balance of the car as well, because look at Brian Herta. He's pulling away from those two guys. He's doing well. I think that means that they've just got their setup a little bit off, and they're using up the tires more.
And Brian Herta leads through the hairpin, Gary.
And possibly, Paul and Danny, exactly what's happened here is that Herta has just been cleared by his crew to go up on the fuel. That means they can richen it up, get maximum use out of that power plant. So no fuel concerns at this point. They're good to go the distance, and they've given him the green light to just turn it on and charge.
And Gary, the best guess would be that that's true for everybody.
Exactly. We heard that from Scott Pruitt's camp just a short time ago. They had plenty of fuel. They went to full rich. They were hoping that they could make a run on the Ganassi cars, but it looks like those top four are pretty evenly spaced right now.
Well, the way the day is going at the moment, we may see some brand new names. Brian Herta scoring his first win in the Indy cars, and Jimmy Vasser taking the PPG Cup for the first time in his racing career.
Yeah, so if Brian Herta were able to win this, what a result that would be. Of course, Laguna Seca last year also saw the first victory for an IndyCar driver. There's David Letterman, part owner of the Bobby Rahal team. Had the privilege of interviewing him at the US 500. A very funny guy, even in reality, as well as in his shows. But Brian Herta would be the not the first-time winner at Laguna Seca, because of course last year Gilles de Ferran got his first IndyCar victory here. A very emotional occasion that was too. It's been an up and down year for Herta. Qualifying wise, he's been extremely fast. He's been in the front 2 or 3 rows, certainly for most of the second half of the season, and regularly outpaced his team boss, Bobby Rahal. But really all he's got to show for it so far is second place in the Marlboro 500 at Michigan International Speedway back at the end of July. And that's his only podium of the season so far. He's currently languishing in 10th place in points on 70. So it's been an up and down season for Brian. Still, of course, bouncing back from that big accident he had at Toronto 2 or 3 years ago, where he smashed his pelvis. And, well, he's always been predicted ever since he won the Indy Lights Championship of great things, and maybe he's on the verge of realizing them. It's not been quite the electric finale we'd hoped for. It's been a bit of a disappointment with Allenser Jr. and Michael Andretti, both really out of contention. Little Al still 11th, Michael still 16th. No challenge whatsoever, but the real interest now is whether Zanardi can overtake Herta and come second in the championship.
And the battle for the championship belongs to Vasser at the moment. The race itself belongs to Brian Herta as Raul Boesel suddenly slows off of the final corner, slows coming up the hill in the pit straight. He was doing so well, too. He was running in the bottom half of the top 10, had carving his way through the field, and then suddenly just pulls off to the right side of the course as they started up the hill. Ride, of course, with Team Green, Barry Green's team. No indication of what happens then next year. Robbie Gordon was originally supposed to go to that team, but now he's decided he's going to go over and take Kyle Petty's ride in the Winston Cup Championship with Felix Sabatis, and so Green has nobody. Gary Gerald?
Interested onlooker down here in the Rahal Herta camp, David Letterman. Letterman making, I believe, his second appearance this season at an IndyCar event. Of course, is involved in ownership with Bobby Rahal with this team. And while Letterman watches intently on a monitor here and charts the progress of both of his drivers, he is the one personality at this end. Joe Montana, who had been here Friday and Saturday next door in the target pits, had a commitment that wouldn't allow him to be here today. And Montana said, man, it is killing me because we got a chance to kill a championship off. But no Montana. Dave Letterman's here, however, and he's cheering on Hertamania.
Originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, a massive race fan. Boesel off the edge of the course now, wasn't even able to make it up the hill, Jan.
That's right, Paul, because he had another engine problem. Remember, just last week in Vancouver, they had engine difficulties as well. So Team Green, boy, it's been a tough season for Barry and his brother down here.
Oh, don't let your foot off the brakes. Last time as we ride with him. Won a race as a car owner 66 races ago, Nazareth in 1992. 18 of the drivers that started today's race don't have 66 starts. Team Green, I want to put this to rest right now, because we know that Team Green's looking for an American driver with a good portfolio. You are not available, Mr. Sullivan. Right? Right, Mr. Sullivan?
No comment.
Oh, no! Oh, that'll add to
Put me on the spot. Would you just put me on the spot?
You know?
You just had to start that one going, didn't you?
Well, somebody did. I started. It's been all over the paddock all weekend. What's Danny going to do? You going to lose Danny? No, I'm not. I got a handcuff on him. He's staying with me. So Ray Hall climbs the hill on a beautiful day here. Temperatures in the high 80s. Been a cloudless sky right from the time the practice started. Brian Herta is the leader. All the pit stops are complete. Everybody has enough fuel to make the end. And so now it will be a sprint to the finish as we move to the closing laps here at Laguna Seca.
So just 12 laps to go now, and Jimmy Vasser must be able to smell that championship and be able to smell those $1 million. As we ride with his teammate now, Alex Zanardi. That's Brian Herta up ahead, the race leader. Alex Zanardi was leading this race, of course, started from pole position, but Herta really has been on one today. He's been driving very well in the Lola Mercedes, using the Goodyear tyres, and a number of the Goodyear runners seem to have been struggling today with tyres overheating. Meanwhile, Chip Ganassi sits and waits. He just really wants to see Zanardi get past Herta, and he can have his 1-2 in the championship. But, well, he's had a great year, Chip Ganassi. It's really gone very much all his own way. Of course, Vasser won $1 million for that US 500 victory back in May. Another $1 million prize money for being the champion in PPG, along with all the other wins and podiums he's had. Consistency being the key. 1907 of 1922 laps total this season he's completed, and that's really been a very big part of it. 30 years old, from San Francisco, California. Jimmy Vasser, perhaps an unlikely champion to some a few years ago, but well, it looks as though it's going to happen this weekend. Ray Hall still in 7th place. Jan Magnussen just behind him. So we're in the final rundown now. Let's go back to America, rejoin our commentators.
His teammate, Brian Herta, is leading the race. Ray Hall is in 7th place. The Team Ganassi sits 2nd and 3rd, with Zanardi in 2nd. Jimmy Vasser in 3rd place. That's the position Vasser needs for the championship. And sitting in the shade is Raul Boisel.
How do you think that Bobby Rahal feels? Like you said, 66 races ago, he won one, but he was the driver. What do you think that feeling is, knowing that his young protege, if you like, is the guy's other teammate is out there and going to look poised to win a race? And how do you think that Brian Herta feels? This is the time I enjoy the most. You got, say, 10 laps to go. You got Alex Zanardi very close behind you, and it's all yours to win for your very first victory.
Well, it's enjoyable for you? Is it enjoyable for Herta? Or is it him not?
I'm sure his adrenaline's flowing, and I'm sure he'd like to have a big lead, but it's what you live for. This is some of the greatest moments, because you're racing for that first victory.
So Brian Herta continues his lead here. Zanardi's right there working on him. The championship will be awarded here, and you'll see the presentation of the PPG Cup during the Canadian Open coverage following this run. Moving now within the final laps of the season with 9 to go.
And you see that gap there, that red car that came into view behind these two guys? That was Jimmy Vasser. I can tell you what he's thinking right now. He says, I've got a good lead right here on 4th spot. I've got this championship. I just got to finish it. I'm not going to race with those guys and take a chance on making a mistake or breaking anything.
Jimmy Vasser, who cut his racing teeth out here on the West Coast, comes from San Francisco. You name it, he drove it. That Jan Vikas's father, I think, even built some of his quarter midget motors. Looking for his first IndyCar championship. Couldn't go to a nicer young man.